I never thought I'd be here, sitting in a small cafe, lost in my own thoughts, trying to figure out how I ended up cheating on the man I promised to love forever. I know what people think when they hear about infidelity. They think it's black and white, a clear-cut case of right and wrong. But life isn't that simple, and neither are the reasons why someone strays. My name is Ava, and I'm 24 years old. On the surface, I've led what you might call a picture-perfect life. I grew up in a loving family, had a good education, and met my husband, Sam, when I was 27. We were the kind of couple that people looked up to, always together, always happy, always in love. Or at least that's how it seemed. Sam and I had been married for 7 years when everything started to unravel. The first few years were blissful, filled with the kind of passion and excitement that new love brings. We traveled, we explored new hobbies together, and we spent countless hours just talking about our dreams and our future. But somewhere along the way, life began to change. We got caught up in our careers. We bought a house, settled into a routine, and gradually, the excitement began to fade. It wasn't like we stopped loving each other. We still cared deeply, but the spark that had once defined our relationship seemed to dim. Our conversations became more work, bills, groceries, and less about our hopes and dreams. We were comfortable, but that comfort slowly turned into complacency. I didn't realize how much I was craving something more until I met Matthew. Matthew was the new art teacher at the school where I worked. He was everything Sam wasn't, spontaneous, creative, and full of life. From the moment we met, there was an undeniable chemistry between us. It started innocently enough, with friendly conversations in the teacher's lounge and shared lunch breaks. But as the weeks went by, those conversations became more personal, more intimate. We talked about our lives, our frustrations, and our dreams. He made me feel seen, understood, and for the first time in years, alive. I tried to ignore the feelings that were growing inside me. I told myself that it was just a harmless crush, something that would pass. But the more time I spent with Matthew, the more I found myself thinking about him, wondering what it would be like to be with someone who made me feel the way he did. It was intoxicating, the way he looked at me, the way he made me feel like I was the most important person in the world. I knew it was wrong. I knew I was playing with fire. But I couldn't help myself. The pull I felt toward Matthew was stronger than anything I had ever experienced. It wasn't just physical, though there was certainly an attraction there, it was emotional. He filled a void that I hadn't even realized was there, a void that had grown in my marriage over the years. The affair started on a rainy Friday afternoon. We had both stayed late at school, finishing up some work. I was about to leave when Matthew asked if I wanted to grab a drink. I hesitated for a moment, knowing that I should say no, but I didn't. We ended up at a small bar nearby, and before I knew it, we were talking like old friends, laughing and sharing stories. One drink turned into two, and by the time we left the bar, the rain had stopped, but the air between us was electric. We walked back to our cars, and as I turned to say goodbye, he kissed me. It was soft at first, tentative, as if he was testing the waters. But then it deepened, and I found myself kissing him back, lost in the moment, lost in the rush of emotions that I hadn't felt in years. That kiss led to more. We started meeting in secret, stealing moments whenever we could, during lunch breaks, after school, even sneaking away on weekends. It was exhilarating, the thrill of doing something forbidden, the excitement of being with someone who made me feel alive again. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop. The affair became an escape, a way to break free from the monotony of my life, a way to feel something, anything. But as the weeks turned into months, the guilt began to eat away at me. I loved Sam, I really did, but I couldn't deny the connection I felt with Matthew. I started to question everything, my marriage, my choices, my values. I was torn between the life I had built with Sam and the feelings I had for Ryan. Living a double life was exhausting. Every time I was with Matthew I felt alive, but the moment I returned home to Sam, the guilt hit me like a ton of bricks. I'd look at him, at the man who had loved and supported me for years, and I felt like the worst person in the world. Sam didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve to be lied to be betrayed. But I couldn't bring myself to end the affair, and I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth. The guilt manifested in different ways. I started avoiding Sam, pulling away from him emotionally and physically. I made excuses to not spend time with him, telling myself that it was better this way, that it would hurt less if he didn't know. But deep down, I knew I was only making things worse. The distance between us grew, and I could see that it was hurting him, that he knew something was wrong but didn't know what. One night, after a particularly intense day with Matthew, I came home to find Sam waiting for me in the living room. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with concern, and asked me if everything was okay. I wanted to tell him the truth, to confess everything, to come clean about what I had done. But I couldn't. I was too afraid of losing him, afraid of the consequences, afraid of facing the reality of my actions. So I lied. I told him I was just stressed from work, that everything was fine, that there was nothing to worry about. But Sam wasn't convinced. He knew me too well. He could see the strain in my eyes, the way I avoided his touch, the way I flinched when he tried to get close. He didn't press me for answers, but I could see the doubt in his eyes, the fear that something was wrong but not knowing what it was. It broke my heart to see him like that, to see the pain I was causing him, but I couldn't bring myself to stop. The affair continued for months, and the guilt only grew stronger. I was living a lie, and it was tearing me apart. I knew I couldn't keep this up forever, that something had to give. But I didn't know how to end it, how to choose between the man I loved and the man who made me feel alive again. The breaking point came one evening when Sam and I were out to dinner. We were sitting across from each other at our favorite restaurant, the same place we had celebrated anniversaries, birthdays, and countless other milestones. But instead of feeling happy, I felt hollow. The conversation was strained, the connection between us almost non-existent. I could see the sadness in Sam's eyes, the way he kept glancing at me, searching for the woman he had married but couldn't find. As we finished our meal, Sam reached across the table and took my hand. His grip was firm, but there was a vulnerability in his touch that I hadn't felt in a long time. "Ava," he said softly, his voice tinged with sadness. "What's going on? You've been so distant lately. I feel like I'm losing you, and I don't know why." I felt my heart shatter at his words. The pain in his eyes was unbearable, and I knew I couldn't keep lying to him. I couldn't keep hurting him like this. But I was still too much of a coward to tell him the truth. Instead, I pulled my hand away and mumbled something about being tired, about work being stressful, about everything except the real reason why I was pulling away. Sam didn't push further, but I could see the defeat in his eyes, the resignation. He didn't know what was going on, but he knew that something was wrong, that our marriage was in trouble, and he didn't know how to fix it. I wanted to reach out to him, to tell him that I loved him, that I didn't want to lose him, but the words caught in my throat. The affair ended a few weeks later, not with a bang, but with a whimper. Matthew and I had grown distant, the excitement that had once defined our relationship slowly fading away. The guilt had become too much for me to bear, and I knew that I couldn't keep living this way. I ended things with Ryan, telling him that I couldn't keep hurting Sam, that I needed to try to fix my marriage. Matthew didn't put up much of a fight. He understood in his own way that our relationship was unsustainable, that it was built on lies and deceit. We parted ways, promising to remain friends, but knowing deep down that it was unlikely. I wish I could say that ending the affair brought me relief, but it didn't. The guilt was still there, and so was the distance between Sam and me. I had made my choice, but the damage was already done.